So we are welcome back to class, and this is the Module 3, Lesson 5 on the Scrum Master Training, Module 3, Lesson 5. And in this lesson, we'll be looking at what the Scrum Master does at the Sprint Retrospective meeting. What does the Scrum Master do at the Sprint Retrospective meetings? That's what we want to focus on. As a quick background, laying um, the premise for us, we discussed on what happens at the retrospective in Module 2, where we talked about the 353 of Scrum, the 3 roles, the 5 events in Scrum. So under the 5 events in Scrum, we looked at what happens in the retro. Retro, of course, is also called retrospective. And in that particular class, I mentioned that we should make reference to it as the sprint retrospective meeting, not just retrospective meetings, because retrospective meetings could come up for other reasons. But this one in particular is for the sprint. And in that previous class, we laid the foundation that retrospective meeting is a team affair, a Scrum team affair. The stakeholders do not join them. The stakeholders are not expected to join them. It's a moment for the Scrum team to have a reflection of how the sprint went. And there are specific things looked at during the retrospective meeting. Okay, so at the retrospective meeting, that's where we look at how the sprint went, what went well in the course of the sprint, what did not go well in the course of the sprint, what could we do better in the course of the sprint. And it's a collaborative meeting that all the team members would take time to look at those. In that class, I also shared with you using one of the tools you would make use of during the practicals, where you would have the actual feel of the retro meeting. The tool we made use of is Mura, and in Mura, you would be able to create the board for an interactive conversation. So if you need to catch up with the foundation on what happens at retros, that's the sprint retrospective meeting, please go back to module 2 where we discussed on the sprint retrospective meeting. Right, so before we go further, let me also remind us that we said at the retrospective meetings that the Scrum Master should be smart enough to quote and unquote water the ground. What I mean by water the ground is to do icebreakers so that the team members could settle in well. And I made mention most icebreakers are done with game. I now made mention that personally I make use of agile games for my icebreakers. And what agile games do is that you would have both the fun side of playing game, enjoying playing game, that fun. Then you would also have knowledge, something to learn. So the use of agile games for me personally, I'd taken advantage of it to use it to coach the team on agile improvements. So, for instance, if I want my team to improve on collaboration, I would search and build or modify agile games or an agile game that's focused on collaboration. and it will be fun, but at the same time, the team members could learn why Agile is big on collaboration. So a smart Scrum Master would want to do that also. I also mentioned in that class that the retrospective meeting, that's the sprint retrospective meeting, is also a process meeting, not a product meeting. It's not expected to be for technical discussion, is to look at the process. But a smart Scrum Master would want to balance on both legs, because all the developers, they are focused on the product. The product owner is also focused on the product. So if you do not want to be a lone ranger, you should balance on both legs. I'll have a session looking at how we review both the process of development and also the product that has been developed in the course of the sprint. So that's casting our minds back on what happens during the retrospective meeting. So let's go over to now see what the Scrum Master does. Of course, some of this we've highlighted. So the ones we've highlighted earlier, we won't take so much time to focus on them. So what the Scrum Master does during the retrospective, the sprint retrospective. Of course, I wouldn't take time to talk about this already. We know what it means. The Scrum Master facilitates the meeting from um, the purpose of the meeting, pulling, sending invites, putting agenda to the invite, and all the rest. And to the meeting proper, the conversation, sustaining conversation, making it a relaxing, a safe environment, bringing that relaxing mood where developers could take a moment, step out of that that development thing and have some fun. And that is what we actually look forward to you achieving when you get to the practicals. The Scrum Master for that particular sprint, while you are taking your sprint retrospective, should come up with good icebreaker for the team, should come up with agile games for the team that the team would enjoy, teaching or coaching on a key lesson that would make improvements happen for the team. Then, of course, now put the conversation, facilitating conversation, ensuring that every participant is actually engaging in it. That's one. Then, two is what I've just discussed earlier, setting the stage. So, the Scrum Master goes ahead to prepare the icebreaker, to have soft landing, to have some fun, for the retrospective. The retrospective meeting itself is not the game, but you want a time where everybody would relax, take their minds off the deliverables for a moment and have some fun. I can remember there was a time in one of my teams, um, we played a game of searching for different items. So a team would call an alphabet, and all your team members, the other team members, would go look for items from that particular alphabet. And it was a lot of fun. I can remember we played that game virtually, so you see developers running up and down, going to the kitchen to go fetch a kitchen spoon or knife, or to get glass cup, get flower vases, and bring it to the screen, bringing lots of fun to it. So a smart Scrum Master would set a good stage for the members of the team to relax. Mind you, I said initially that is a Scrum team event. Stakeholders are not meant to join you for that sprint retrospective meeting. Stakeholders also, in a scaled structure, have their own retrospective meeting. That is for setting the stage. Then, of course, it leads the foundation, the conversation. When it comes to the retrospective, it is solely the Scrum Master's show. The Scrum Master is bringing everybody together, asking or helping them to bring out their opinions on how the sprint went, what went well in the course of the sprint, what did not go well in the course of the sprint, and what are their suggestions. Then, from those suggestions, they have a conversation around it and now begin to action what could be delivered, the improvement they could bring in to the sprints. So that's how a Scrum um, retrospective should go. So it's an affair of the Scrum Master. So a Scrum Master, of course, in addition to being a game master, is also leading the conversation and encouraging everyone to participate. How I do that personally, because I have different developers, different team members from different regions, from different zones, from different time zones on my team. And you could find out that um, some developers could be the quiet types. Some developers do not speak much, but you want to bring the best out of them. So you need to find ways by which they could engage with themselves. And those are some of those things we want to try out and see while I mean, really you are running the sprint retrospective during the practicals. Of course, we'll be there with you as a coach. We want to see how you bring the best out from your team members, how they are able to share um, their own opinions without bias, without being coerced, without being forced, without being pressured, how the sprint went. So you are meant to encourage participation of all the members. Of course, there are various techniques. Some of those we'll be looking at the practicals. Um, some of those techniques include the board that we use. Before COVID happened, retrospective used to be in the office when, of course, when you have co-located team members. When COVID happened, so we have been able to translate those online. So there are various tools, one of which we mentioned earlier is the Mura. There is Muro also that you could use to facilitate retrospective meetings. There is Whiteboard. There are different brands with whiteboard these days. Microsoft Teams has whiteboards, Zoom has whiteboards, some of those other products will have whiteboards. So there are brainstorming techniques you want to bring on board. There are different styles you want to initiate to the team. Um, I believe there is a technique that has to do with starfish um, that you can engage with to bring some fun and bring the best out from your team members and make them to come on board and share some of those knowledge. So some of those things we want to see you develop, want to see you do at your sprint retrospective meetings, where you'll be fully in charge, where you ensure that all the developers, not just the developers, the product owner inclusive, every member of the team is able to put in their thoughts to that conversation. Of course, then of course from there you capture insights and you help focus on improvement. The whole essence of the sprint retrospective is bringing improvement to the process of delivery. Bringing improvement to the process of delivery. I showed us in the class on the module 2 when we looked at sprint retrospective, the board that's quadrants that has 4 angles. What went well, what did not go well, how could we improve, and actionable items. The conversation should be sustained and all is in a bid focusing on the improvements, that would be done. You are looking at how to improve the team to deliver better, how to resolve issues, and make sure that the team moves on smoothly. Then, of course, you now need to um, the insights you've captured need to be turned into actionable plans. And this is what we actually, the actionable plans, where you gather, you facilitate conversation on those actions. You, there are times a scrum master wants to prioritize those different thoughts and opinions and ask, so which one should we implement in the course of the sprint? A scrum master and the team may not bring in all the improvement that have been identified. They could only bring in, or they may bring in, those ones they see that they can actually implement in the course of the sprint. There is no point identifying an action that could not be sustained, right? And that is, so identifying the action and bringing it into the workflow is what we call Kaizen, which is actionable items, the improvement for the team. So with all this, the Scrum Master is continuously promoting improvement for the team. The Scrum Master is looking at how the team could improve on their delivery processes. That is what the sprint retrospective is all about. We will be sharing some more knowledge and relate more on them when we get to the practicals, when you begin to facilitate, sit on that Scrum Master sprint retrospective driver seat and begin to facilitate conversations, bring out the best, at the same time keeping to the time box. That also is very important. All right, so that will be all for this class. In the next class, we would look at the sprint itself. Of course, we know every other event, the four other events take place in the sprint. So we'll just have a quick overview of what happens in the sprint. So that will be all for this class. We'll see again in the next class. Bye for now.